Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. And this is going to be a little bit bonkers, I think, but in the very best of ways. Everybody and their dog is trying to do a story, a conversation about the reality that apparently Bruce McAllister does a very good impression of a raging man baby. Um, but there's more important conversations to be had. And so I am so excited. This thing ballooned up on me in a way that I wasn't anticipating, and I think it's going to be fantastic. Um, so instead of just doing a conversation about Bruce McAllister as a raging man baby, we've got a panel. And boy, do we have a panel today. We have, I think, like 400 students or something that it's not 400 that have shown up. We're here to talk today to talk about the concerns about the teacher strike. We're here today to talk about the concerns about education. And rather than listen to a bunch of adults speak for youth, we have so many youth here that are going to speak for themselves today. I am so excited to welcome our panel. There's so many of you uh, to talk about all of the education things. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And see, this is where like my Zoom protocol gets to be so painfully obvious because I'm used to doing these things with one or two people, and I have a couple of people that are doing like the polite claps and not unmuting their mics. So to start with, I'm going to ask one of you, and whoever unmutes their mic first wins, because there's so many of you. I'm going to ask one of you to go first, and let's start with I want to talk about how the conversations work as a jumping off point because I think one of the things that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, certainly at a very particular town hall, is the adults, the grown-ups like to talk over the kids. And I don't know that that's a great way to get a frontline perspective on what the experience is inside of classrooms for you guys. So for somebody who would like to go first, um, what are your concerns about how this conversation is going so far? Do you feel like things are being representative fairly?
I feel like it's a very complicated topic to discuss about. I find that in this situation, students are caught up right in between the thick of it, between government discussions and the teacher strike, especially when you take into account where, well, we don't really have a choice in the strike. We're like, we can't just go back to school in this because there are no teachers available to teach us. I'm really worried by the fact that our education is similar to being used as a bargaining chip. And I'm very worried as to what aspect our education after this strike is going to lead into, especially for the fact that, unfortunately, it's the harsh reality that adults simply don't think that the younger generations, especially the youth, such as us, are educated enough to have an opinion on this. Oh, you're just kids, you don't understand anything yet, and it kind of feels like we're just being left in the dust in this conversation.
I just want to go on the record with that piece. My understanding is that a good number of you are part of the IB program. And I have a very good friend who did the IB program at Sir Winston Churchill a very long time ago. And uh, I think that any adult who looks at any youth who's in the IB program and goes, they're not as smart as me, needs to give their head a shake because y'all could outperform circles around me. I have no illusions about that. Anybody else want to add to that? Like, do you feel like your voices are being heard? Do you feel like your voices are being represented fairly? Or has this turned into like a political football where we're just going to do what we want and we'll position the kids however we see fit?
I don't believe adults understand the extent of what school means to us. This is our everyday lives. This is what we're dedicated to. This is what impacts our future, uni applications, especially as a grade 12 student myself. I don't know if we're going to have diploma exams. I don't know how my daily life is going to go. And simply for the sake of again, that bargaining chip, that power trip, that out of the whims of a few people, our entire lives can change. And that's just how it is. We are, at least people in my grade, are COVID sixth graders. we experienced COVID in sixth grade, and our lives completely changed. We had to watch lots of debates, and we just had to have our school shut down, which already stunted our growth. We didn't have our grade six PATs. And so that is just speaking for my grade. I'm not even talking about people who experienced COVID in elementary school. Now those students are experiencing another bout of having our education simply being thrown away. And I think that that should be noted more. Additionally, even before, while we had school, we had like my social studies class is the smallest one, and there are 28 students, but my largest class has 48. So I am not getting much attention myself, and neither are our other students that need more academic attention. Our everyday lives are changing, and it seems to be a bargaining chip. Thank you.
I just want to I think that bears repeating. The smallest class is 28 and the largest is 48. That is bonkers to me that there's 48 kids in a single class. The other thing that I just want to double check on is like, were you disappointed that you didn't get to do grade 6 PATs?
I mean, anyone here can have their opinion as well. I do think, for myself, I do think that it is crucial to have these exams because, one, for people who want to go into university, we're going to be experiencing a lot more things like this. And people who go into work, we like to have an idea of a structure. Our daily life as adults, soon to be, are going to be having to have that structure and that discipline. And we simply don't have good examples of that with that blip of COVID and now this blip. It's that at a flip of a dime, our lives can change. And I don't think fostering that sort of mindset for our future generation is good at all.
I mean, fair point. My experience in school, though it was a while ago, I would do everything I could to avoid tests. So it's wild to hear somebody be like, "Oh, I wanted to do the provincial test in grade 6." Anybody beat the record? Is there anybody who has more than a class size greater than 48? Is that common? Is that like baseline?
I mean,
Feel
I
free to
think
jump in.
Sorry.
I
Um,
was just gonna go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay. I go to Churchill. I'm not in chemistry or biology IB, but I have a lot of friends that are. Um, that class size is 60 students, 60. Yes, there are two teachers, but this is still a room with 60 high schoolers that all need their own individual help and attention. And I just think the fact that my friends are struggling right now, they're falling behind in grades, has everything to do with the current government. And we need smaller class sizes and we need more teachers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can speak to that as well. I was in biology IB last year, and we had about 60 kids in our class to two teachers, and so that averaged up to 30 a teacher, which for IB, when you need a lot of that extra specialized help, is really difficult. But then even more I think it's even worse in regular classes, where in my math class, for example, we have as well over 40 kids, and if someone needs help, they can't get that in class time. You have to go and email and try to almost work through it on your own. But people who need that extra like communication from their teachers, it's becoming more and more difficult to get that. And you can't get that in class anymore. You have to go elsewhere to look for that.
And also just building off of that, like IB students, they're already like self-learning, and like they're like a lot of it is like learning yourself, and you definitely need help from teachers. But in normal classes, like you were mentioning math class, a lot of these students do need a lot of extra help. And now public education is where you're supposed to get that extra help for free. Like you're not supposed to, like a lot of people can't afford the private tutoring, private school and stuff like that. So I feel like there should be a certain amount of attention that we're receiving from teachers, which is getting taken away with these large class sizes.
I guess my next question has to be, we've seen the Minister of Education, and I'm not trying to politicize this, to be clear. But I think, you guys are all saying one thing, which is 60 is nuts. Even with those poor teachers, I would feel so outnumbered. Like, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the My Chemical Romance song, Teenagers Scare the Living Shit Out of Me. I would be terrified. But we have the Minister of Education who's been making the rounds on the talk shows for the last week, and he's saying class sizes aren't that important, that they don't matter, and that they have no impact on learning. So I just want to give you all the open mic. Do you have anything that you'd like the Minister of Education to hear from the actual students who are in those actual bonkers classrooms?
Like, for example, I know this is the case for like IB. In IB, there's sort of like a funny joke where you skip class to study, and it sort of is like the value of class time has sort of decreased so substantially because like there's no way to make up a difference in class. Your teachers are busy. If you have a question at this point, just go home and study it yourself. And if you have that ability to just like skip class and study, then you have to do it because how else are you going to catch up? I mean, there's 60 other kids who are trying to, get there and get there with you, but no one's going to wait for
And
it.
that's not only in IB. Like I'm not taking IB, and it's the same case. Like a lot of my friends, especially during around exam season, because we're not going to be able to. First of all, we're not allowed to use our phones. So if we do have a math question specifically, like we can't just search it up. We can't Google up like a YouTube video or something. So it's just 10 times better to go home because the teachers aren't able to answer our questions. Go home and watch a YouTube video about it and learn it ourselves.
Anybody else have some words for the minister?
Hi.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
sorry.
it's
Go
okay.
ahead. Go
You,
ahead.
you go first. No. You go
No,
first. Don't worry.
I'd just like to add that it isn't also like it isn't just the fact that our class sizes are like extremely big and we need to hire more teachers and lower the number of students per class, but it's also building more schools. I know a friend of mine in my IB math class, he has to go um, on the bus for 1.5 hours just to get to school and then to have to take another bus for 20 minutes. That's almost 2 hours he has to spend on a bus just to get to school halfway across the city. And so, building more schools is a very, very crucial aspect of lowering these class sizes.
And if I could just add to that, just for one quick sec, is our school at Sir Winston Churchill, we have just recently put in a bunch more portables to store more classes because we have a like 60-year-old school with like almost 1,000 kids over capacity. So we're just trying to build whatever we can to store the kids, not even fit them in reasonable class sizes. We just have to fit them in the school at this point. So we need more room and more teachers to be able to have that. And it's just not feasible to have those in these really old schools, these old brick schools that are built 60 years ago. There's no room for everyone.
I couldn't
And
agree more. I made a joke with my friend yesterday saying how if no more schools are being built, or if there isn't enough being built at some point, our school would need to start implementing scooters if we wanted to get to the next class on time.
Yeah, it takes 3 minutes to get across my school. My school is a newer school. It's North Trail. It's in the Northwest. And it's been open for 2 years, and we're already implementing portables because of the large amount of students. Like, it's been 2 years since our school's been open. And my leadership class is supposed to be in the portable, but since the portables haven't been built yet, like, we've switched classrooms twice already because there's nowhere for us to be.
I just wanted to add on to like a different angle of this discussion. So I have a younger sibling, and it's not only high schools that are like way too crowded and there are too few teachers for too many students. I would say it's basically the same case in elementary schools as well. And for my little sister, she goes to school and in her class there's 30 or above people in her class alone. And honestly, I feel like for high school students, that many kids, but for an elementary school teacher, it's like even more tough to manage all of these elementary kids who have like all of them are at different points of their development and they have a lot more needs than let's say a high school student would have. So I feel like this like issue, even though there's a lot of high schoolers represented in this call, it's not just a high school problem, it's a middle school problem and it's an elementary school problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean, that's such a big problem now because think about how like Alberta's education system is probably or like due to standardized testing like PISA tells us that we're at the top or of public education, and that just means that Alberta students are ahead. And when something like this happens, or when the ability to get ahead of other countries' education systems or something like that is threatened by either strikes or losing conditions that have given us sort of the Alberta advantage, like having good teachers, having good classroom sizes, or things like that, sort of stagnates the amount of like smart students that we can get in high school and university or things like this.
I would like to bring up some effects that happened in Sir Winston Churchill because of the overcapacity. So, one of my members has mentioned that there are currently new fire exits being placed because it is a fire safety issue because of how many people are there. Additionally, they've also had paper constraints. So, they've advised students to, with their own money and own time, print all of their notes, not all, but definitely more than usual, and have had to basically do some of that work for themselves and spend their own money. And teachers have also been paying out of pocket. That's been a known thing for years. And now I'm sure it's even more emphasized. What are all of your thoughts on that?
I can definitely attest to this. I go into school expecting I already paid the fees. I've already paid the things that, I spent money for. And the fact that I have to pay even more just to get stuff that will get me through this course, the stuff that's going to actually help me know my material, was so confusing to me as someone who always got their notes printed out for them by the teacher. I think the severe underfunding is a serious problem, and I really think it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, go
I
ahead.
thank you. I have a friend at UFC, and I was talking to him about the recent policy for the printing and how some of us have to spend up to $25 for the school to print our notes. And he was saying that is absolutely insane for the fact that we have to pay $200 just to be in this IB program, and for us to be paying up to $25 for notes is incredibly unreasonable and insane.
Okay, I just
Go
wanted
ahead,
to
Sam.
add like some food for thought of the issue of like the increased printing fees and schools being underfunded. So while I agree that it is definitely a big issue that schools are being underfunded right now, if you think about it, if we are going to fund those schools, where's this money coming from? This money is coming from the taxpayers. So in the end, we're going to be paying for like the supplies and stuff one way or the other, either through our taxes or directly to the school because they're being underfunded. Now, I would personally like to see the schools being funded more, even if it means more taxes for us, because this way it ensures that all of the systems around Calgary are fair instead of basically setting arbitrary prices for things like printing fees, and also it's just generally more fair if like everyone's tax dollars gets pooled together and it's distributed to the public schools for more funding.
I mean,
Um,
something I'd
and
like to bring
and
up. Oh, go ahead.
and just another thing, just to point on and sort of add on to the printing problem. I believe at Sir Winston Churchill, one of the psychology IB classes lost their textbook. So not only do they not there, not only is it an IB class, and they don't have their textbook to study, and add on the printing problems, and add on the fact that students are paying for these. I mean, it's just not a good look. I mean, we have the resources to fix this. It's just not getting fixed.
I have to jump in there because I just got to clarify. When you say the class lost their textbook, there's some fascinating use of implied numbers going on there. Did the class only have one textbook?
So they had a digital copy, I believe, of their IB psychology textbook, and so they don't have access to it, from what I've heard. They either the publisher has just taken it, or they just don't have it anymore. But that's what I've heard from one of my friends.
That's bonkers. Somebody else jump in while I shake my head.
I guess
Um,
to, oh, sorry,
Sorry.
you go, you
I
go.
was just gonna say something about. Uh, I think someone was discussing taxpayer money for public schools, where all of our money is getting pooled together, and like the budget has to come from somewhere, right? Like, I'm also paying money for my math and science text, like books for my notes and stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the government also giving money to private schools from our taxpayer money? So if something like that is going on, like private schools are already asking for tens of thousands of dollars from their students alone. I feel like our government should be focusing on funding public schools, especially when so like large of a population are going to public schools, And especially when we're having problems like strikes where students are able to go to school for like it's been a week now, and we're giving money to private schools instead of funding public schools.
To add to that, I can link a source for that. I do have some sources that I can link down for us so we can all get more educated on that, because that is in fact true. And we are the only province in our entire country to be doing so. I believe it's 70% of the funding that we get, that number, 70% of what we get, that is the amount that is being given pure taxpayer money to private schools. The whole per student thing. Yeah.
I can attest to this. I'm a private tutor and I tutor kids in private schools as well. And I hear them talking about their classes, I hear them talking about their schools, and I'm just thinking, should this not be something that all students have access to? I hear this, I hear some of the stuff that they say, and it sounds logical in my mind. And then I think, well, why don't we have these things? They say, oh, we have a TV in every single room, not just a projector, an actual TV. They'll say, we have facilities in our school for school sports. So stuff like wrestling, stuff like badminton. I know Churchill has a swimming pool, but so many other schools don't. And now I'm wondering, why don't public school students have the same access to these like facilities as private school students as well?
I mean, the argument to that is like they're paying for it themselves. Like they're paying like the argument that someone else may give is like they're paying tens of thousands to receive those facilities. But then again, when we look at the taxpayer money, like are they giving it, or like is every like taxpayer in our like province being able to fund these private schools and giving them the facilities when a lot of taxpayers, a lot of their children are going to public schools, and a lot of that money should be funded towards public schools as well, because after like the socioeconomic line above there, children should have the same access, because otherwise we're not getting the same tools required, and we're obviously setting up other children up for more success, and these children in public schools have to work a lot harder to get to the same level.
When those kids are talking about the private schools and all of the things that they have there, do they have fire exits and escapes properly?
I don't think they have a need for it. I mean, they don't have 40, 60 people in a classroom. They only need one fire exit. They don't need several.
I'm just curious, like, does anyone know what the official reason or the government's reason is for providing 70% of funding to private schools? Because, like, to me as a public school student, that doesn't really make sense because private schools are already getting a lot of money from the people who attend these schools
I think the official answer would
directly.
be,
So I was just wondering if there, yeah,
yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
lag there, man, and I jumped on you. That's my bad. I think the official answer from the government would be, and this is something that the current party campaigned on quite aggressively. They file it under the idea of choice in education. And so they believe that by making funding available to all of the different things, whether it's private schools or vocational schools or charter schools or religious schools, that's providing more choice. And choice is good. Um, that's the rationale that goes behind the increase in funding towards the private schools that's been articulated by not just this current government, but the previous iteration of the UCP as well. So do with that answer what you will. I want to welcome in the people who just joined, and we're talking about education today. What are your thoughts?
If I could just add to that last comment, if the government wants to have so much choice, well, currently there's no choice because we're not even in school, and the only choice is private, and it really seems like they're pushing towards that. So I think if they want choice, they need to have good public schools. Because if you have a public school that you go to and you can't afford to pay for notes or talk with your teachers because there's not enough room or class sizes, and you can't even get to one class because the hallways are so crowded, that's not a good choice. So you have to provide the ability to have kids in public education. You can't take away that and say that you're providing choice. It's very counterintuitive.
Well, and I think there's a strong argument to be made as well that if you believe in choice and if you believe that everybody should have access for choice, then you need to fund education, public education, so that everybody does have equal access to that choice. Because otherwise, then it does become a question of, well, you can have choice if you can afford it. I don't know. Am I missing something?
No, I think you're totally right with that. For sure.
Okay. I have some notes here that I wanted to write down because one of the things that one of you just mentioned was the whole idea of the funding. And I mean, Alberta does have the lowest per capita funding uh, for students in the country. One of the other things that I think is fascinating is we have Demetrius Nicolaides, like I said earlier, running around saying that classroom sizes don't matter, but talking about the charter schools and the private schools. If you go to the Government of Alberta website, one of the recommendations that parents should look at when they're trying to choose a private school is classroom sizes. So like, and that's kind of one of the things that I really wanted to explore with you all a little bit is the 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 nature of the faith of the conversations, because it seems like there's some very bad faith conversations that are happening. And the concern that I have as an old person is that to me, like I engage with that because I run on spite. But I can imagine for a lot of people, when you see the people who are making the decisions and allocating the funding, engaging in these bad faith conversations and these bad faith arguments, it's enough to make you go, I don't want to deal with it. So first of all, I want to thank you all again for showing up for this conversation today. But I want to hear some of your reactions when you see the politicians or the people in power engaging in those bad faith things where they'll say one thing and do another, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum. To be clear, what are your reactions to that?
I mean,
Um,
I was on the Alberta Next panel and I watched Evan basically go up to the mic and not within like 12 seconds he was already cut off. Like he didn't even get to the content of his speech and he got cut off, which I just honestly think that was really disgusting. But on the other hand, I think luckily there are a lot of people in Calgary and in Alberta who are willing to hear our voices out. And I think that really brings me hope for like a better future where the young people can actually have a say in what happens in government, in what happens in our province.
I think a big part of what everyone is saying like is like this directly impacts us as the youth, and as youth we always hear like, oh, we want more youth representation in politics, but then when youth are trying to represent themselves in politics we're getting cut off, and like we're just not getting respected overall. So that's scaring the youth from wanting to join politics and wanting to express their opinion and wanting to express what they really need.
I
Can
do
I
that the kind of we are the next voter base, or we are going to be the next electorate. And I think if the government does not take into account the issues that, we stand for and what we actually value, instead of, pandering kind of to their current supporters, it's going to become an issue, especially in like future elections.
I'm just going to let it hang for like 5 seconds after everybody speaks so that everybody has a chance to hop in. Um, with the private schools, charter schools thing. And this is where, again, like one of the things that I find is I think there's maybe a little bit of nuance missing in the conversations that we're seeing in the broader media, because there's a new petition that's been brought forward to say that, hey, do you think taxpayers should be funding private schools? And there's some wrinkles there because when we're talking about private schools that have like you can learn how to fly a plane if you want to because they have their own fleet of planes. I think maybe there's an argument to be had that the taxpayer money not so much needing to be going there. But there are private schools that are specifically for people who have developmental issues, disabilities, and to say that those students don't get the funding, now all of a sudden the conversation gets complex. Do you think there should be room for that kind of nuance in these conversations? I mean, I would like to think it's implied that if it's a school that exists to try to equalize things, that that's a good school. It's okay to have that as a private school. If it's a school that exists because of affluenza, then maybe that's not so good. What are your thoughts?
I think
I would agree with that in that there's a lot of nuance in it, and you need to figure out what is like making
Wouldn't it
society
be
more
better than
equitable. Um, And then the other thing is, if the government is funding partially private education, it does give them the chance to give some oversight. But I believe, like with that, you need to have the responsibility to say, hey, how much funding do we need to allocate these schools? Um, and I think that they should be held to the same, like they need to be held to the same standards of education as everyone else's. But with that means you have to raise the quality of education for everyone else, and that comes by funding more public schools. So you need to have the government oversight, but also make it relative to the public education system to make sure that everybody in the province, no matter their background or ethnicity, can have access to our fantastic education here in Alberta.
Just to oppose that though, like there is an argument to be made that maybe the government should supplement these schools, not as private schools, but as publicly backed and endorsed schools, where we understand that there is a problem socially, that there of course there are going to be some students who are mentally developed, or like not mentally developed, or not at the stage that they'd like to be at certain times, and it shouldn't be up to the fact that if the parents have enough money or don't have enough money to send their kids to these private schools. It shouldn't be up to that. It should be up to the fact that we are the people, that we have a government that should in theory care for us. We are what is a democratically socialistic country, and even though capitalism is our primary economic means, we need to understand that people at the end of the day have needs, and these needs need to be met. It is not fair to the parents of the students that may be mentally challenged or mentally not developed at the stage they'd like to have to sort of upfront these costs. It should be the responsibility of the government.
And you know what? That's a really good point. I guess to throw in a ball here, I have a very close friend. We've known each other for like 13 years. And just this year, she has officially left private school. She's been attending for 5 years or so. And she said that the main reason behind it is, I don't want to say corruption, but it's an element similar to that. In which case, her family pays the private school $25,000 per school year in order for her to attend this school. And unfortunately, they weren't able to make that payment. And so, what this private school did was give her two options. Either she can leave. However, the one issue here was that this fee is divided into 2 semesters. So they pay for the first semester and then they pay for the second semester. However, how the payment for the second semester works, that they have to pay ahead before the second semester actually starts. So midway through the first semester, her parents weren't able to provide funding or essentially pay for her second semester. And so what the school did was that either we kick you out now, but we keep the money that you guys have already put into the first semester, which keep in mind, she hasn't even finished that yet, or you can stay. But the one thing here is that not only do you have to pay for the second semester, but you have to pay an additional $5,000 to stay because of your delayed payment. Now, a question I'd like to throw in is that, is this reasonable for a private school who's already being funded to ask more money from someone who is not only struggling to make that deadline, but also an unreasonable $5,000 amount?
I mean, I'm just doing some back of the napkin math here, and the per funding student from the province is less than $10,000, I believe. And so to get 30,000, like, are the desks gold?
That's my question.
That's bonkers. And yeah, like that, but that I want to paraphrase what I believe is it Barles?
Pardon?
Yeah, Barless.
Okay, sorry. I want to paraphrase what Barla said. Do you think that the philosophy should be, when it comes to the different services that are available to different students, do you think that the philosophy should be the right classroom for the right students, as opposed to, if you can afford $30,000, you can sit in a gold-plated desk?
I sort of believe in the notion of, well, I don't sort of, I fully believe and endorse the notion of equity, not equality where everyone gets the same thing, but equity wherein everyone gets what they need. There was a really good example I saw where there were a few people, different height, standing at a fence to watch a game. And so the shortest person obviously can't see. The medium person, if they get one box, they can see. And the tallest person can just naturally see. If everyone gets one box, that's equality. That's fair. That's fair to the system. Everyone gets what they get. Everyone gets a sort of equal split. But the shortest person still can't see, and the medium person can only barely see. And so, what might be fair is to say maybe, hey, maybe the tallest person doesn't need that box, and maybe we can give the shortest person two boxes, and we can be equitable. We can be fair to these people instead of just being fair to the systems and the numbers that they embody. So to sort of recollect that, I'd say yes, I believe students should get what they need. I'd say the need justifies what the student has or what the student will need.
Wait, I just wanted to jump back to kind of the original question of do we need more nuance in like talking about funding to private schools? And I feel like the root issue here is how exactly we are defining schools and how exactly we're categorizing them. Because as you said, Nate, like in terms of private schools, there's a lot of different types of private schools. There's schools that prepare you for an education in the US. There's schools that are for special needs students. There are schools which teach you how to fly a private jet. So these are all really different, and I feel like we can't just categorize them under the umbrella of private schools because that leads to very vague like terms, and this vagueness means that people can take advantage of the system. Schools can take advantage of the systems. So what we really need is we need to split what are the schools that are for basically enhanced learning and what are the schools that are actually addressing a social need, a community need. And I feel like the thing here is that like some private schools are obviously really important for the government to fund, but I feel like we shouldn't really call them private schools because by definition, a private school is a school that does not receive funding or support from a government. So I think it's really strange how our government funds these private schools and categorizes all of these different types of schools with varying needs into the same bucket of private schools and give them so much funding.
Do you think the determining factor should be equitable entry?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods and nobody's swearing at me, so
Can we
I'll-
clarify what equitable entry means?
Well, like what Barlis was saying, I think that there's, if there's a school of some kind, I don't think, I could be wrong. I don't know that if there is a special needs school that specializes in make sure that there's really good wheelchair access to all of the places and all of the hallways are extra big. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of students that go, I'd like to go there because I like legroom. I think that there's going to be overwhelmingly the number of people who are going to try to get into that school are going to be people who have the need for that additional access. So it's not that these schools are exclusive, but the people who need the extra space because they're in wheelchairs and maybe have aids and all of like teaching aids and all of those things, those people would be given sort of the box, as it were, the bigger box. And if it's a school that specializes in making cheese, I don't know why. The people who want to make cheese could apply there, but it wouldn't be exclusive because I think one of the problems that exists in the conversation with the private and the charter schools is that they get to say who gets to come there, period. And it's not based on need, it's not based on merit, it's based on whatever they want it to be based on. And so that's what I mean. Does that help?
Yeah, and just to kind of expand on the point, I think the issue of discussion that's occurring around private schools is exactly that. It's not that we might be funding them because sure, this funding could go towards, students with special needs. It's that private schools don't have to deal with the core issues that are facing education, what kind of caused this teacher strike, right? They can limit their class sizes, they get to set decisions on picking teachers and things like that. So I think that's kind of the main friction point that's occurring and why the petition was started.
I just wanted to say, like, because there's a very, very big difference between a school that someone wants to go to and then a school that someone needs to go to. like exactly what you said. If someone is handicapped, they're in a wheelchair, then of course, they do need a wheelchair ramp. But like for example, if someone wants to go to a school to make cheese, then they can go. But that is a choice, right? That like they don't have to go to make cheese. So just wanted to like, it's a very, very important factor that there's schools that people can go to and schools people physically need to go to or mentally need to go to.
I just want to jump in as well there and make it clear. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this because you're all the ones in the classrooms. And as I said earlier, I am very old. Um, there is a part of me that goes, when we're having the conversations about disabled kids in classrooms, or kids who have different learning styles, all of those things. One of the things that the Premier of Alberta has openly publicly said is that she's toying with the idea of just segregating schools again. Her words, and I'm almost sure this is exactly right. We tried the inclusion thing. Maybe we tried too hard. And that's pretty much a direct quote. And I'm willing to say that. So I'm pretty confident. What are your thoughts on the balance of making sure? Because like, here's my thing. I have kids. I want my kids to be in classrooms where they're exposed to a variety of different types of people. I want from different cultures, different religions, different, all of the things. And that includes different learning styles and different disabilities. Because when they grow up, it's not like as soon as you turn 18, all of a sudden the disabled people just go away. It's a life skill that can be taught in classrooms. And so I'm curious we have some very high functioning people on this call. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the inclusion piece and on the Premier's proposed idea of simply segregating anybody, the weaker parts of the herd?
I'd like to jump in here for this one, if that's okay. Thank you. In William Aberhart High School, that's my school, we have a program called Access ALP, where people who have disabilities can learn in their own pace. The difficulties that I see as someone who doesn't quite I'm not in the groups that interact as much with the people with disabilities or people who get help. Even then, I can see that these teachers are strained. So first of all, that's already in their own classes, in their own groups, they're already struggling to give attention to each of the students who need it more. They're there because they have more needs, right? And we had previous programs where in all of our option classes, we would be able to interact with students with disabilities and we can show them what we learned in our options. Like, for example, in my orchestra. I don't know if that'll be able to happen as much, first of all, with the strike. And now that we're not in school, we won't get to have that same level of interaction because we won't be at schools at all. I do think it's crucial that we have those interactions, though. I think that it takes away a lot of the stigma. It takes away that odd divide that people have, that they think that they're better simply because we just have different skills. It's not that they're lesser or weaker. It's just that we have different skills and different needs. That's truly it.
I believe oftentimes students are like, oh, why do I need to learn math? I'm going into a social science. I don't need to learn all of this stuff, right? And it kind of comes down to the point, to build off back to your question, we need inclusion because school isn't only about just learning stuff like math and science. It's about learning how to learn new things. And it's about learning basic life skills on how to communicate with others and how to interact with others. It's about learning empathy. And I think all of that adds up. And when you're taking away the inclusion part of it, you're taking away the part where children are developing their empathy and developing that there's people who maybe don't look like them, but they're still, like you said, they're not lesser than you just because they don't look like you.
There's
that's a really good point.
Sorry. There's a point of connection here that I think I kind of want to make, where we just spent around 10 minutes talking about how we have a lot of private institutions that deal with these disabled and struggling people. But then if we do want them to bring them into a position where we can also integrate with them in public schools, then suddenly we're now talking about a funding problem again. Where do you want to continue giving this private school money to institutions that can continue to put very direct assistance to these disabled students? Or do you want to redirect that funding to make sure that these disabled students are still helped, because you obviously need to make sure that they have an equitable ability within schools, but also still able to participate in a public school system, which we've established still doesn't have enough money for each student.
And you know what?
Just
That's
to
a
sort of,
really
sorry.
thank you. That's a really good point because coming from someone who for 5 years, I've been very close friends to with people of our discussion. Back in grade 5, I had a certain friend, and he was mentally challenged. And in a certain way, I can see like, I was friends with him, and I saw the way that he was struggling in class because, as surprising as it was, um, 6 years ago, we were facing the exact same issues where there were too many students in a classroom. And unfortunately, students with disabilities weren't getting their needs met. And from my perspective, from what I saw, the teachers of my class simply just didn't have the resources to give students like my friend with a mental disability that attention. And now, drawing back a connection to what we're talking about with inclusivity and for students to understand the struggles of disabled people, I found that many students within my class bullied this or this boy simply because he was different and he had to be treated differently and he was seen, unfortunately, as below everyone else. And so, unfortunately, because the public school that I went to simply didn't have the resources to give him that attention, even though I feel like most public schools should be for inclusivity, he had to leave that school and go to a private school that specializes in catering proper attention to students with those disabilities. So, from my perspective, I feel like in some ways, private schools that fund, or wrong word, private schools that help support students with these disabilities should still exist just because in public schools they are not able to cater the appropriate attention to these disabled students.
I think
Just to sort of, sorry, just to sort of
um
add on to that, I just wanted to mention the Alberta education system, wherein we sort of subdivide groups into streams, where there's -1, -2, -3 for each grade level. And so in these sort of subdivisions, -1 is sort of the most, it's the average stream. So it's tailored to Alberta's curriculum, where everyone's expected to sort of be capable and sort of have advanced enough knowledge to continue and pursue your higher education. Where -2 studies is sort of the struggling part, the struggling section. And I think the -3 system, sort of as you mentioned to Danielle Smith direct quote, this is sort of the inclusive option, where in the same public schools that we have these -1, -2 kids, we have the -3 kids, where these students should have extra resources. But the system completely fails when teachers are under strain and classrooms are oversized, because how can anyone focus on the -3 kids or -2 kids when there is literally 40 people in a classroom, 50, 60 people? This is impossible to do.
Here's my question, because as you all have been talking, I've been trying to sort of like flush out in my head what's the delineating factor here. Do you think it would be safe to say that if you're a school that uh, segregates a population away from another population, so you have control over who's coming into your school, you're able to say we're not going to allow these people for uh, function means, religious means, whatever. If you're going to say that those people can't attend school here, then you don't get public funding. And if you're willing to have your doors open to everyone while trying to pursue that idea of the bright person gets the right box, then you should get public funding. How does that sound?
Well, sorry, I don't want to interrupt anyone if anyone's saying anything, but it should just be that if somebody has a mental or physical disability, um, where they can't go or attend a public school, they shouldn't, like, their parents shouldn't have to pay more for them to go to that school. It should be, because education, without a doubt, nothing to add on, is a human right, and it should be something that is something that every kid is able to get access to and is able to succeed in Alberta.
We keep discussing the point like that if a private school is a school where it's helping people with like disabilities needs, or like for example someone who needs a wheelchair, we should fund that school because that is obviously trying to build equity, as we were mentioning. But if these people are still having to pay to go to the school, there's going to be a lot of students who can't pay, who are on wheelchairs. So instead of funding these private schools, maybe we should just fund our own public education to the point where we can, anyone with wheelchairs can just go to these schools, and not, it doesn't rely on if they're able to pay the $10,000 instead of $15,000 because the government funded a little bit.
I really like that point. I think it also adds, we can also have that integration there as well, where it doesn't feel as, like, honestly, the idea of having there be just a wheelchair school feels almost ostracizing to me. What does a person in a wheelchair have to have indifference with education? You know, I'm sure that a person in a wheelchair can do and learn the exact same things that I do. You know, I don't think that, just like, especially it really highlights Danielle Smith's comment too about how I believe someone mentioned that she found there to not be as much of a need of inclusion. And it's like, well, goodness, why are you expecting people with other abilities and people who have disabilities to have to, first of all, pay more, even if they do receive part of government funding, as the person previous to me mentioned, but also have to have that physical ostracization? You know, why can't they be in my class? Why can't they be in my school? We need more funding for public schools.
We
Mm-hmm.
talk about a lack of need for like inclusion, and uh that's what you were said, like someone said that Daniel Smith mentioned, we don't need like this inclusion that we're talking about, right? In private schools, I've heard stories about people getting discriminated against because of like their race, their religion, and that's just part of private school. Like that's just something that it shouldn't be there, but it is there, and I've heard about it from many other people. If we're incorporating the same thing into public school, the reason why so many of my friends have left private school because they feel discriminated against, and we're going to come into public school, the safe space where people are supporting inclusion and supporting diversity, and that same kind of ideology is now getting built into public schools, then what's the difference, and how are we going to ensure that minorities are actually succeeding to the level that they can succeed?
You know, I do think that is like inclusion is the point of schooling. The point of, you know, having an education in the public schools is not just to kind of learn, because, you know, you could go online and learn from a textbook. The point of, you know, putting our kids into schools is to have them interacting with all like their community, right? And it builds kind of that character within our society. And you know, I was at the athlete rally yesterday with some people on this call as well. And you know, it's really extracurriculars is really the point of schooling. And it was really clear yesterday as well. You know, some of the core life lessons that we learn, you know, things like courage, you know, inclusion, right? You know, knowledge. That's the point of schooling. And in Calgary, I think there's kind of like a geographical, you know, there are certain areas of the city that have like more or less or one demographic, right? But I think, you know, when I went to school in Lethbridge, it was really clear because, you know, there's less schools in Lethbridge, right? So all of the city basically went to one school. You could see all these different groups, you know, interacting and socializing and including each other as well. And I don't know if Silas or Zach from Lethbridge want to share more on that, or
Just like my experiences in Lethbridge, like there are many students at our schools that do need to be accommodated, and I feel like the teachers at our school, like, they are working as hard as they can, like, to accommodate and to help them with like the resources they do have. But like it gets to a point where they are so stuck on like helping those kids because they don't have enough resources, that it's almost disrupting our learning. Like personally, like, I'm not getting as much attention as I should because there are these students that they have accommodated learning, and they learn differently than I do, and they need more attention from the teachers, but there's not as many teachers to help. Like, and then it's kind of like the other students that don't need as much help, but they still need to ask questions, and they still need attention from these teachers. They can't, because the teachers they're stuck on helping these kids with the disabilities, that we're just stuck. Like, everyone can't get the attention that they really do need. Like, I'd say that in Lethbridge, though, the teachers, they're not too strained. Like, our classes aren't as bad, I'd say, probably, as in Calgary. Like, the biggest classes are probably 35 students, none over 40, but I'd say, like, just in Lethbridge, it's not too horrible. But I'd say, like, from what everyone said, in Calgary, it sounds pretty horrible.
But can I reframe that a little bit, if it's okay? Um, what I'm hearing you say there, and if I'm getting it wrong, you are 100% allowed to say you don't know what you're talking about. Shut up, old man. Um, but what I'm hearing you say there is that there are kids who require more supports, and we simply aren't resourcing them properly. It's not a function of the teachers suck. It's not a function of those kids suck. They don't. It's a function of the money has not been allocated appropriately to make sure that everybody in the classroom is getting their supports. And is that a safe encapsulation of
Yeah,
what you said there?
I'd say, like, we almost need, like, more EAs to help with these students, like, individually, like, not so much just the teachers, but like just EAs that can help them while they're in the classroom as well.
Okay, cool. I just
And
wanted to make
I'd
sure.
like to jump on this kind of point as well. So I'm from Nelson Mandela High School, a school in the Northeast. And one of the things that we at Nelson Mandela take a lot of pride of is the fact that we house so many first generation Canadians as well as immigrants, newcomers to the country. Um, I myself, as a first generation Canadian, know for my parents personally how hard it was for them to kind of get into what Canadian society looks like. You know, my dad, he can't really speak English as well. He is still learning. And on top of that, right, I see a lot of kids that come in and they don't know how to speak, and they don't know how to speak English. They don't know how to, communicate. And one of the things that our school is really good with is that we house a lot of these people that are learning English as a second language. But one of my main concerns with this is the fact that funding, right? We need funding to be able to provide these people with resources, right? We can't just start teaching them whatever, because if we don't have the funding necessary, how can we be expected really to help these populations, right? Um, and on top of that, it's also like a spacing issue as well, because we've just had a lot of people like come in. There's still a lottery system at Nelson Mandela High School. We have like at least 2,000 people in our building. We've just had more modular classrooms installed and stuff. But aside from that, right, there isn't that much like funding being given to those people that need it. And whenever I hear like these type of conversations, it kind of makes me frustrated with, the fact that these people are getting ignored. It feels like these people are getting ignored. And it's something that like we've all like had to see, especially whenever we interact with these teachers. I can just see like the strain and the wear and tear on their faces because of the fact that these people aren't being given the resources that they need. So yeah, that's that's kind of my thoughts on this.
Cool.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what Amrit said. Because I have a friend who he's he's not a Canadian citizen yet. He's an international student in high school, and he's from Korea, right? So he is taking the IB. So that means he's allowed to come to Churchill. But there is a thing in Calgary where if you are an international student and you are within like the Northwest area, they send you to Aberhart um, to kind of attend that specially supported system for international students. And I think that's a very good thing. And I think it probably does support the diversity and kind of the interaction of communities and the sharing of cultures, in that school, and it definitely affects the experience of the kids at school. One thing that I do believe though is that we should have that system at every school in Calgary. It shouldn't be that we are only selecting one school and dedicating, because there is a shortage of funding and teachers and things like that. I'm not sure if anyone at Aberhart can comment on that or.
That I can. I go to Aberhart. Thank you for bringing us up, Evan. Yeah, we do our very best to bring that sort of support to international students. I will say that our program has either, if I'm not mistaken, one or two teachers, and that does worry me because international students is a very broad thing. Some students could come from Korea, some could come from India. It's so many different cultures and so many different languages. What if people can't speak English and need language support? We can't assume a general majority of international students and expect to support them in that way. So while I am very thankful that my school is willing to do so much for international students, we need more teachers for that. We need more support.
And that also builds into the whole idea of inclusion and stuff. Like we pride ourselves as Canadians to be a pluralist society where we're including different cultures and we're expecting immigration, but then we don't have the resources to support the immigration. That's not adding up.
I got a couple other questions I want to hit you guys with, and then I'll let you get about your days. And this one's a little tongue in cheek. It's a little facetious, so bear with me. On the scale of 1 to 10, given that we've talked about, underfunded classes, lack of supports, how relieved were you that the Minister of Education and Danielle Smith decided to pursue book bans?
I was not pleased because, given our current situation in the education system, I feel as though the Minister of Education and Danielle Smith are not doing the jobs that they were employed to do. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that they're there for a reason. I hope for a good one. But does it make sense for them to be worrying about a book ban over the current struggles that students are actually facing? Because the question I'd like to pose to everyone is, are we more worried about a book ban, what we're reading, or the education that we are receiving that will help us when we grow up into adults?
Yeah,
I think absolutely not, because that does not make sense. Why are you prioritizing a book ban over students' actual education?
Thank you so much for that, Emily. I want to jump in on that. First, to Nate's reply, how far in the negatives can we go on that scale? Because I don't think that book bans were in any student's interest. We can talk about, sure, if anyone wants to bring up parents, teachers, politicians that care about book bans, but really that's not in the students' interests. I've not heard a single member from my school, from other schools, talk about, yeah, we're overwhelmed with work and stuff, but that book right there, that scares me. No, that's not a sentiment that people have.
And just
Thank
to sort of
you.
comment on that, I mean, like the only reason why a book ban would ever be necessary is that if there is a particular book that is somehow found to hurt a child or hurt their education, then and only if the curriculum pushes for that book to be read by students. I mean, no student's gonna pick up some random book that hurts them just randomly at a library. That's not going to happen. They only go to libraries if they're interested. It's not the target audience. It's only going to be a problem is if a curriculum pushes a bad book onto a student. And in that case, why are we focusing on the books when we could focus on the curriculum? Like Arya said. But I mean, it's just such a strange thing to advocate for. If anything, it just screams that they're worried about what might get out there, which is just not a good look for anything or anyone.
Yeah.
Also, in the book ban, sorry, am I interrupting someone?
You can go ahead. It's okay.
Okay. In the book ban, if I'm correct, the hands was it The Handmaid's Tale was banned? And I get where the like why there may be different reasons why that book was banned, but it also includes like themes of like censorship and stuff. So that's just pretty ironic to me. And I was like joking about this with a friend, and I was like, "Oh, this is so dystopian. Maybe I should write a book about this." And then they replied, and they're like, "Well, that would probably get banned too." So.
I think it's also a matter of like further limiting resources as well, right? The more that we ban these books, the more that we like do this, right? It's further exacerbating like a problem that we already have where we don't even have enough resources to give students, right? Like it didn't apply to my bio class, but I'll use it as an example. We don't even have enough textbooks for one class, let alone the entire class of bio 30s that are present in our school. So imagine like other classes, like with 35 or more kids in English or in social, where we learn about different like global issues as well. If we start batting like these things, which I feel like was to answer Nate's question, I think I would feel like way more on the negative side about this, right? Um, but it's more of a matter about, like further limiting our resources that we have, right? Like we're gonna have to get rid of all these books now or put them away somewhere. And that further creates a bigger problem for us to have where we can't give other people materials. We're going to have to figure out alternative ways to give people resources that they need, especially for courses such as English 30-1 or Social 30-1, where those ones are for the diploma and you will use some of those resources later on.
Yeah, and I do think, this is kind of a common trend where those in power, they just kind of throw something out there to kind of distract us from the fact that there are real problems in our schools. Like as the others has said, no one has been looking in their school library. Personally, it might be because like I go to Churchill and the library isn't that big, but like I haven't seen anyone like going inside our school library and kind of like searching for a book and like taking and checking it out from the library. The issues that face us now are things that are core to education, like funding, like teachers and classrooms. So I think it's really kind of disappointing that instead of focusing their efforts on this, the government uses tax dollars and also human resources to kind of pursue a red herring of like book banning.
And I guess like an idea that I'd like to mention I believe To Kill a Mockingbird was a listed book on the book ban. And something interesting I'd like to mention is how my own teachers um, recommended us to read that book, whereas the government is going the opposite direction and trying to prevent us from reading this book. And I guess like I haven't really gotten a chance to say this for a message I like to make to the education minister, but I feel like it's also based on the perspective that both Daniel Smith and the minister has on education. I believe that these two people should be required to actually experience what it is physically like to learn and be in a classroom and what it is like to actually succeed in one, because obviously the teachers are going this way and the government's going the other way. Their perspectives are not aligning. And from something that I believe in is that our government does not have a clear understanding of what education is actually like for students in these conditions. I believe that like there's like this saying where every president, or once they are elected, should go to outer space and look at Earth from that perspective, because that is when they're actually getting this perspective. Wow, I'm in my job because I'm responsible for taking care of this world. It is my responsibility to be taking care of these people that are now in my hands. I believe that like this quote is very similar to what I think that our government should be in as well. That Daniel Smith and the education minister have to experience what it is physically like to be in a classroom, to be making these decisions that they think are right for us.
Can I just jump in here? As like kind of a last statement, because I also have to go. Another book that got banned was Fahrenheit 451, which, if you didn't know, is about banning books. So they banned a book about banning books, and if that doesn't tell us something, I don't know what will. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Bye, everyone.
I mean, the great irony to me about the book ban thing, which I find wildly entertaining, and then I have just two more questions, and they'll be quick. Is they launched the for the teacher strike, they launched an online toolkit, which means they know that kids are on the internet. So if you're concerned about kids being exposed to ideas, we have some circular logic going on, it feels like. Um, but here's I got two other serious questions, and the young lady who just up, she kind of tipped away one of the questions is going to be, but here's my serious question for all of the remainder of you that are on the call. If you could just say yes or no out loud, because this is an audio podcast as well, and I want people to hear the answer. Is there anybody who is thinking about staying in Alberta once you guys are done high school, or are you all just looking to get out of here?
I plan on staying personally.
I want to get out of
plan
here.
on leaving.
I'm booking it out of here.
Yeah, me too.
I'm probably leaving
I'm
after for school and stuff.
I think this is kind of a turning point where I will make that decision, and it's gonna depend on kind of especially what goes on with the teachers' strike, because I think it's going to reflect, the future of Alberta.
I
As of
only
right now, as of
I
right
only
now,
heard
it looks like I'm staying. I don't think I'm gonna leave this province. So
okay, so two hard yeses out of the whole group.
I'd say I for sure stay. Too much family here. Can't leave
Wait,
them.
Brett?
I think I'm for sure leaving. I think there's like a bigger issue at play here that isn't just funding and policy. There's also kind of an issue of brain drain away to places where there's more opportunities. So for example, I could go to the US, I could go to Toronto. These places there's more like um flow of capital, there's more opportunities there, there's better pay there. So I feel like these are all like root issues that need to be addressed.
And if I can kind of comment on Tijan, like comment on there as well. Um, that is an issue with Canada as a whole as well, right? Because we are so close to the US, and one thing that the US does very well is, focusing all their efforts on growth. They just want that upward trend, and they're not concerned with kind of, maybe recently, but most of the time they haven't been concerned about, distractions and things like that. And I think, I saw in the news that um the kind of UCP government toying with this idea of like separatism is affecting a lot of confidence in our economy and in our province, and especially education. Us youth, we are going to form the next kind of economy of Alberta, and it's teachers who directly kind of mold what Alberta will become. And so I think the future of our province does rely on us and the next generation.
You all seem so very nice. Please, none of you go to the United States. I don't want to see anything bad happen to you. I don't want to read about you in the news. Go Toronto, sure. The 401 is miserable. Everything that you've heard about that highway, it's 1,000 times worse, but still better. Don't go to the United States. My last sort of two-parter question for each of you that want to. Um, what is the one thing that you would say to the government, be it Danielle Smith, be it Demetrius Nicolaides, or the very angry man baby? What would you like to say to any of those people?
I'd probably just tell them and remind them that who is going to vote in the next sort of cycle, like what kind of people are going to vote in the next kind of cycle and what their ages are. I mean, everyone in high school now, I think, is 16, 17, 18. So just keep in mind that we're going to be able to vote soon. So that's all. So I'd remind them.
I would just ask them to consider the future of our province and not just right now. And that future is us. And they're using our education as a bargaining chip. So if you want Alberta to be successful in the future, why are you harming our future?
I think I've mentioned this before. I mentioned how we want youth representation in politics because youth are the future. And when youth try to represent themselves in politics, we're shutting them down. So keep in mind, as everyone said, the youth are the future, and we do need their representation. So keep their opinions, and at least hear them out. Like we don't don't cut us off, please. Thank you.
I would have to ask, what is the benefit? Because we're all bringing up that we are the future. What is the benefit of undereducating us? How are we supposed to be successful adults? How are we supposed to be informed voters when we're all undereducated because of things like um, our the quality of our education lowering, and now not only the teacher strike, but they're being locked out. So that would be my question.
I guess the message I'd like to give them is like, I guess the unfortunate reality is most politicians are just doing their job so that they can be re-elected in the next government, which means that the decisions that they're making is only within the time frame that they are elected in. They're not thinking ahead. So a message I'd like to give to them is that or I guess for the entire government of Canada, I would like to say, is to begin making decisions that isn't restrained in the years that you are in government for. Because honestly, Alberta and Canada as a whole would be functioning a lot better if decisions were made for the long term than short term.
Yeah, and just to echo what everybody else is saying, I guess my message to the government of Alberta, Daniel Smith, and the education minister is, do you guys want us to like be successful, or do you guys not want us to be? Because at this point it kind of looks like these guys really don't want us to be successful at this point in time. It feels like everything, like Emily was saying, right? It feels like everything is kind of coming back to that point where, like we're getting kind of like limited, I guess, and we're kind of coming back. I'm sure I'm not sure if that's what you said, but we're kind of getting back to that point where like we aren't being represented properly, we aren't being listened, and all of our decisions that are being made in whether it be the legislature or whether it be in parliament, it's only serving one population, it's only being made for the benefit of one type of like certain type of people. So I feel like my message and like my kind of question is like, do you guys really want us to be successful, or do you guys not want us to be?
Okay, my last question.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
You
Did I
know,
just cut off Evan? Sorry, go ahead, man.
no worries, no worries. My message to this government is that I spoke up, right? But all of us in this call are also speaking up, and youth, we will speak up. And the truth is that if they're regretting it now, they should have regretted it 20 years ago when they put into our curriculum the values that we learned, right? We are speaking up because we stand for the values that we learned in Alberta schools. And regardless of what government, which political party is in power, these are values that are uniquely Albertan, uniquely Albertan. They are Canadian values, and they are the values that we should be upholding.
I just wanted to add some final thoughts to the premier. Let's listen to the students. Let's listen to the people. Let's spread less extreme and exclusionary rhetoric and listen to everyone's voices. Because only by working together with everyone in the province and the country can we hope to make progress.
So probably like my message for them would be like, can we hurry it up? Like, can we get a decision? Like, because it's impacted us a lot. Like personally, like my school in Lethbridge, we run with the quarter system. So I only have 2 classes a day. So my classes are 3 hours long. So I only have English and physics right now. And those are both things I want to pursue in the future. Like I want to go to post-secondary and pursue something with probably physics, maybe not English, but those are both things that like I've missed a week, which is around a month in the semester system. And like when I go to university, like these things that I'm missing out, what am I going to do in university when we talk about these subjects or these chapters that I just completely missed? Like I'm just not going to know. And then it's just like, I'm just kind of screwed. Like, what am I going to do? And we don't have any resources now. Like I can't even see what I've missed because the teachers can't give us any resources. Like I can look in our calendar, but what? Like I can't get any resources. I can't look at my textbooks. They're all at school. So it's just like Can we please hurry it up a little and like strike a deal?
I do agree with what Zachary and Emily said about, the we need to kind of hurry this up, and the each hour that we students are missing school, as I said, we're not only missing out on learning, we're missing out on community building and socialization, and we saw the harmful impacts of that during the pandemic. And going back to what Emily said about kind of the politicians only looking to kind of get reelected, you know Calgary and Edmonton are having their municipal elections, right? And I think Lethbridge is too. And we're seeing that firsthand where like they just tore up Marda Loop again and they're like rebuilding. And then this has just happened within like 3 months, right? So I think it's not fair to all of us where we have only the things that benefit us citizens happening within that campaigning period, right? And also, we should have continual government representation. And I think MLAs they're still on break right now. They don't reconvene in the legislature until the 27th. So right now it's just the core cabinet making decisions. And I think we need representation for the entire year. And yeah, so the government should be stay accountable to the people, and that's what we've learned in Alberta schools.
Can I also like add on how incredibly isolating this kind of like experience that the strike has provided us with has been? I feel like this kind of like thing that the government has done where they just keep on delaying and delaying and delaying, they keep on adding more problems. It's going to negatively impact our mental health and it's going to impact how we think because going back to like kind of like that point about the pandemic, we all knew how isolating that pandemic was. We couldn't see each other for like a good half a year, right? We couldn't talk to one another. We couldn't have those social interactions that we were very normalized with. We can't, like, even right now, right? I'm not going to be able to see any of my teachers. I love my teachers. I miss them so much. And it's incredibly isolating too when you know that kind of like that communication is gone. And, like I can't interact with, like the people that I see in my extracurriculars either. So it feels very draining on, like me personally. And I feel like that can be said for a lot of students in Alberta as well, like going through that strike. So I guess another message I would have for the premier is like hurry this up because you're going to have like those same type of problems that you had with children and young adults in the time of the pandemic where we were all isolated and then we forgot how to interact with each other. So, yeah.
Just sort of
Um,
add on one last thing. Sorry, Evan. I know I just cut you off, and I'm gonna address the irony of this, wherein I say that I speak for all of us. I think I speak for all of us when I say we all want to go to post-secondary. If I could just see some nods, yes or no. It's everyone. Everyone here wants to go to post-secondary and have an actual education, be a functioning human being. We're not just saying this to sort of get good stuff this year. No, but we're actually saying this not for ourselves, but even if we are benefiting from it, we're saying it for the fact that our preschoolers, our elementary students, our middle school students, they're going to benefit off of this. They're going to benefit off the changes we talk about today. So that's sort of the last sort of idea I wanted to address.
yeah, and one last more thing. We talked about kind of this isolating effect and the loss that we students have incurred. And I think it's really deplorable if this is an intentional strategy that the government is attempting to kind of put us on the opposite side of teachers and kind of blame the ATA and things like that for this. And it's really appalling if they do try that, and we've seen things like that before where they are kind of just beating us into submission to kind of and they're running ad campaigns as well, like dissing the teachers. So, another message I do have for the premier is that if you are trying to do that, it's not going to work. We students have spent, 12 years with our teachers, and we see the daily sacrifices that they've made and the incredible people they are, and we're always going to stay on their side. So the only thing you can do is make this strike shorter so that we still stand with the government on other things. Because if you continue to kind of make this prolonged, and it won't put us on the other side of teachers. In fact, it'll put us on the other side of you.
Well, you teed me up for my last question really well there. I thought that Amarpreet really teed me up, but then you teed me up as well. So here we go. In the interest of fairness, and I want to be clear, I have no idea what the political leanings of any of you are. That was not part of the conversation. There was no screening. There's none of that. So when the trolls come, I'll hold the hand over here, but you can all guess what finger I'm holding up. The I asked you what you wanted to say to the government. What do you want to say to your teachers?
I just want to say that we fully support you, and we're trying to do whatever we can to help you get what Education Alberta deserves. So keep going and know that the student body stands with you.
Yeah, and just kind of bring it back to what Nate said. We're everyone in this call is like from all regions of Alberta. Right? We have people from Lethbridge, Calgary, Edmonton, and there's kind of we students, we all share the same view, regardless of political leanings or even social leanings. We, as Graham said, we support the teachers, and I think if the government wants to make this a political issue, they're only going to backfire upon themselves.
Yeah, specifically, I would love to say to my teachers that like thank you for trying to communicate that with us, and even though that they don't know what's going on with the strike, that they still care about us, and I want to like replicate that and care about them and make sure that they get what they need so that we have a better learning.
I'd probably say to our teachers that we see the fact that you are not getting paid here. You might have to take a part-time job. And there has never been a moment that we haven't stood with you on this matter. We have entirely, we the students, both would like to represent you, both would like to assist you, both would like to just help and make sure you get what you need. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about students. This is about teachers having fair conditions as well. This is what the strike is also about.
Like all of us, we really respect the amount of work that you put in to actually help us through what's going on with these large class sizes. If the government isn't able to do anything about the large class sizes, we see the effort the teachers are putting in so that all of us can get the attention, them coming in early, them coming in after school to help us with our work. And we really respect the amount of effort that you're putting in. Like everyone else said, like we do definitely stand by you because we see your efforts firsthand.
Yeah, just like everybody else is saying, we see how much effort is being put into our educations daily. We see the long nights that are put into grading. We see those weekends that are sacrificed just to be able to get our marks in and mark these tests. And we see the days and the hours that go by just making our report cards, giving our, the idea of what our grades are. So to my teachers, I mean, I would love to say like, okay, thank you so much for what you guys have done for us. I'd want to say specifically to one of my teachers, Mr. Bass. He's given me this platform where I can speak. I do part-time journalism with United News, which is our news crew. And I feel like one of the reasons why I'm in touch with any of you guys is because of that, is because of the fact that I met that teacher and he put so much time. Even on the day of the rally on World Teachers Day, he came and he gave me a bunch of recording equipment when he didn't need to do that. He put his own time, his own effort, his own money into doing all of that. So to him specifically, if you see this, you're the GOAT. We love you so much at Nelson Mandela. And also to all teachers that are seeing this, I feel like, or will hear this later, we love you guys for how much you guys do. And as somebody who wants to be like a teacher myself after high school, your work doesn't go unnoticed. We see the work that you put in every single day, every single night for us as students. And I feel like sometimes that can go ignored. But for me personally, and I hope that I speak for the rest of us here, that we don't ignore you. We see everything that's going on and we honestly respect you for this and we love you.
Yeah, I ought to bring up that portion of care that really comes with being a teacher. It's not just assigning lessons that really bring, because anyone can, I suppose, look up stuff and self teach, but there's something very specific about guiding a group of students, bringing that interaction, promoting friendships, promoting that interaction, promoting love for the subject itself, teachers that have paid out of pocket for pizza parties when we were in elementary school. I'm sure there's folks doing that still nowadays. We really acknowledge that care, and this is all of us, all of our students' way of returning that to teachers. We stand with you.
I'd kind of want to bring up like I'd if I had like a message for them, I'd be like, I appreciate like the passion they put into their work. Like I think most of my teachers, they aren't really there for the money. I think they're mostly there because they love teaching and they love like helping their students. And like I'd really like just appreciate like the work they've done in. So me, like all three schools I've gone to, elementary, middle school, and high school, they've all been on the same block. So like I still see like my grade 3 teacher every day picking up my sister from school. Like I still have my connection with these teachers. So it's like I know they aren't just people that are working just to get paid, but they're people because they love their job and they're passionate. And I'd say like I want to stand like I'd stand behind them like in this like disagreement because I know what they've done and all they've done for their students and like the passion they put into their job, not just for the money and all the benefits and whatever, but for the like teaching students and like helping the new generations become better than what they were, like just enhancing people as they go.
You guys are going to make some teachers cry with that bit, 100%. Um, that's all of the questions that I have for you. Thank you all so much for taking the time to chat today. I'm going to open up one last little bit of space before I do the sign off and all of that. I know that some of you are involved with different actions to try to bring attention to how this is not just impacting students, but from an apolitical standpoint, how this is all very bad. Does anybody have anything they want to plug? Does anybody have anything they want to draw attention to? No political party plugs. So if anybody's going to be like, I love the Republican part, I don't think any of you are going to say that you love the Republican Party of Alberta. For the record, I could be wrong, but just in case, no political plugs. This isn't free advertising for political parties. But if there's any actions that you have that you want to draw attention to, floor's yours.
Okay, I'd like to say this really quickly as well. Um, Whoever hears this, and if you're a student and you want to find a way to speak up in your community, right? Obviously, one of the ways that you can do this is contact your MLA, email them, call them, do whatever it takes to just contact them, find them. It is honestly not that hard to go find their email. It's all you have to do is just go on findmymla.com, I think. I feel like, or is it .ca? I forgot, but one of those websites, and you'll be able to find your member of legislative assembly. You can send them a short email just saying that you like see these impacts that the strike is having and kind of like pressure this, or you can send a really long email like I did to my MLA. Just contact your MLAs. One other thing that I would also like to mention is get involved with your school community. If there are programs such as journalism that are kind of being like made in your school during like the time of the strike, if they're still running and they're still operating and they're student run, make sure that you get involved in those as well, because we as students, we have a voice, and sometimes I feel like people kind of forget that we have a voice, but I know definitely for the people in this kind of space, we have not forgotten that we have a voice. So use that voice as much as you can.
Yeah, I would also like to add on on Monday, I think it was, me and some of my friends, we went to this rally. Unfortunately, I could not go on the one that was like where there was like a whole bunch of people and stuff, but we had the chance to like interview some people and like see what people had to say. And we made like a social media platform to kind of spread the message. We did start it only a few days ago, but it has received some attention, and we also posted our video on Urba Calgary. So there was a lot of conflicting views on that, but it was really nice to see what the students actually had to say, and even not only the students but also the parents had to say about the strike.
Students always have a voice. They've always had a voice, and they always will have a voice. And for example, me and Evan and a few other, and I know a lot of other students, we went to the teacher rally on Sunday for World's Teacher Day, and I had I took several photos. I had had a great time. And it's not just the fact that it doesn't matter that we aren't like too focused on it. It's the collective of the people. It's the power of the people that we can make this sort of not a mob, but a peaceful group, and sort of be able to say, hey, we all want this. We all, and as the government, do your job because we need this. So that's sort of the power to do that sort of is necessary to be taken advantage of, or not taken advantage of, but like just done and used by the students, because if we don't do it, who else will?
I would like to give a little shameless plug if that isn't too bad. I'm currently, me and a bunch of youth are thinking of having an information section as well as planning our own initiatives. We're under the Instagram AB Students for Teachers. There's gonna be little periods in between all those if you're interested. Yeah, this will be a mostly youth-led initiative, but we will greatly support the insight and thoughts of caregivers as well, because caregivers and students and teachers, we should all be on the same side, and we are. We all have each other's best interests in mind. So I hope with that information, you can let us know your thoughts, your opinions, and if there are any supports you can provide, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Shameless plug as well. Sorry, guys, but we have a page for our journalism club at Nelson Mandela High School, which is at MandelaU_TV on Instagram. We're posting a couple of interviews. We already posted the one with Evan. So if you guys want to go watch that, I'm saying you guys should go watch it. Watch it because of me, though, not because of Evan.
This is an idea we've had for a few months, like even before this strike was like a really big thing. And we just wanted to make an account addressing issues that youth in Alberta specifically, but like youth all over the world have been facing. And the strike was just a perfect opportunity to start it. And it's the Instagram we started was AB Truth by Youth. So guys, the name's pretty catchy, go follow. But we went on a strike and we just kind of asked some questions that around, or not the strike, we went to the rally and we asked some questions that we thought were important, and we edited clips together and we posted it on our Instagram, which is Truth by Youth, and we sent our video to Urba Calgary and they posted it on there, and there was a lot of different conflicting opinions, honestly. There was like a lot of right-wingers and there was like a lot of left-wingers, and there was people saying things like, get teachers back to work, and there was people saying like, we support teachers. So it was very conflicting, but if you want to know more, you can probably just DM me and then we can talk about it there.
I love that you just gave my audience homework.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think it's important for youth to know where they can reach out, and it's like, I think it's pretty great that there's like 3 of us that are trying to get the more youth representation out there. So like DM any of those accounts, and I'm sure like maybe we could do like a collaboration or something.
Yeah, it would be so cute if we could do like a collaboration or something. It would be nice because it also shows that, the youth, I feel like when we are united, I guess, we can kind of like do a lot of things together. And, like this is just one of the ways that we can do stuff. So, yeah. I love everybody's like input and stuff, by the way. I just wanted to say that you guys are so cool.
I would agree. I'm going to wrap it up, but I would agree 100% with what you said there about the youth being engaged and using their voices, because you all have energy and that doesn't last forever. So make use of it while you can, said the very old man. Thank you all so much for taking the time to chat today. I really, really appreciate it a lot. And I hope that none of your parents are mad at me.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for giving us this platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Nate.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for another episode of The Breakdown. As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're trying to produce here, we would love nothing more than if you thought about signing up to be one of our Patreon sponsors at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab, where for just the price of a fancy cup of coffee a month, you can help us continue to produce this kind of content. Whether you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, in which case, maybe leave a review and a rating, or whether you're watching it on one of our streaming platforms, we want to say a big thank you to everybody who is part of the Breakdown's audience. And as always,
take care of each other and keep the conversation going.